Hi there, YouTubers. This is my first video, particular out of necessity, more than wanting to get started on any sort of channel or anything. I recently have noticed that my Stihl chainsaw that I own has lost power, and I don't believe it has anything to do with the carburetor. In fact, after a little bit of research, they say to check the spark plug first, and mine seems to be good, not fouled up. And secondly, they talk a lot about this spark arrestor screen. Now, I didn't really know much about a spark arrestor screen, and also wasn't able to find a lot of videos that were very helpful for the particular brand of saw that I have. Is a Stihl MS-170. It's a smaller saw. It's a 16-inch bar that runs the Micro Mini, the 5/32 Micro Mini chain on it. It's a great saw. It's very powerful. It's exactly what I need for around my yard for tackling kind of the smaller to medium jobs. I don't think it quite has the power that's necessary for some of the bigger jobs out there. Nonetheless, that's the saw that I have, and this is the saw that's been giving me some problems. So after a bit of research, they're telling me that I need to access the spark arrestor screen, and usually it gets full of carbon and blocks the ability for the exhaust to escape, and then those fumes have to go somewhere, and it gets sucked back up in the engine. And they say that's kind of why it bogs and loses power. So I'm going to try that first because it's the easiest thing to do than fooling around with the carburetor and the high and low idler settings on the carburetor, which are kind of difficult to access on this model. So nonetheless, let's get to it. The tools you'll need, just a set of needle nose. I've got a flat screwdriver here just to help me kind of pry a plate off. I don't have a proper wire brush, so I'm going to use this. I'm not going to hook it up to the drill, but nonetheless, I think that'll work just fine. And then a 5/32 small ratchet. So you'll find on this model that there are two 5/32 studs. Okay, I've gone ahead and loosened them already. They weren't that difficult to get off. I presume that they might be just based on how hot this thing runs and gets, but nonetheless, I've loosened them. So I'm just going to undo these. Okay, there's one and there's two, and you can see that as you loosen this, originally when I first did loosen these from the studs, this plate here was on quite tight, and that's hence why I kind of used the screwdriver to kind of just pry that back. I think you'll notice that it's likely just going to fall right off here. So as we take that second screw off, you'll notice that I can just remove this front plate here. Okay, there's no need to take the muffler right and separate right from the engine housing. You can just pull that right off. And in behind, you'll notice, it's starting to fall already, that there is a screen. And that screen just sits up, just right up in there. Okay, that's the way it's supposed to be when you take this plate off. So if I remove this plate, okay, we'll just set it to the side. It's going to be tricky, obviously. We'll just kind of help it along here. Okay, we'll just remove that and we'll put the bolts with it, so we'll be able to find those a little bit later. So that screen sits up in here, and you can see really how dark and plugged that is. Now again, I didn't know much about these things until I did a bit of research. And not only other Stihl brands, but other brands of chainsaws seem to be have the same problem. This is a very small screen compared to some of the bigger chainsaws that you'll see. But you'll notice everything, it's just packed up with this black soot and this carbon, okay? So they've said to remove this screen. Now, several people have put this into a vise, and I thought it would be just as easy just to hold it in needle nose. Boy, this is really difficult to do with just one hand. So nonetheless, bear with me. Now, the other thing they say is that you can hold it with the needle nose, and then just hook it up with any sort of gas. I've got these little propane here, a little propane torch. I think you'll probably be able to get that hot enough. And what you want to do is we want to heat this up, and heat it up till it's as close to red hot as you can get it. And then we're just going to take the wire brush and we're just going to scrape all this carbon that we burn off. Should turn to ash, and we should be able to see through the screen. So I'm going to pause here and I'm just going to heat it up, and then I'll come back to it. Alright, we can see as we heat this up, and we're kind of getting it red hot. And our hope is that we're going to turn a lot of this stuff to ash. They say it's okay if it lights on fire. Apparently that's completely normal. Try to be very careful doing this. Alright, now that that's nice and hot, I think we'll go ahead and just shut the gas off here. Okay, we're going to take our little wire brush here. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to set this up for you to see, but I'm just going to give this Alright, you can already see all of that coming out of that screen. Alright, we can see that after heating it up and giving it a little light scrub, you know, considerably how much cleaner that is. You can actually see right through it. Oh, that's great. So, that was really simple. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that. So after this, I think before I put that in, you can kind of notice that this is really gummed up in there too. So I'm going to give that a light scrub before I stick this screen back in there. So you can see that not having the proper wire brush is a little difficult to get in there, but it didn't do too bad. I was able to kind of scrape some of that stuff off. All those holes are clear. I just went ahead just quickly and went around it and kind of scrubbed everything off. It was pretty black and gummed up. I think a lot of that is like oil and maybe some fuel mixtures mixed in with some sawdust and the shavings, and it just creates a bit of a paste. And you know, heat it up, cool it down, heat it up, cool it down several times, and it's something definitely worth taking the time to just kind of scrape up. You'll notice that I didn't really show it in the video. This muffler itself here just slides over those two studs here and comes out these holes. Pretty simple to take off. You take a look at the back there. It's all full too. You know, I kind of wipe my finger there through there a little bit. I'm going to take some paper towel. I'm going to clean up all that. This is just all oil, and I mean, there's a strong smell of the fuel and the gas that's coming out of there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that up as well before I button this thing back up. Okay, I've gone ahead and just cleaned that up inside there a little bit. I think just for the process of moving things along and not being too lengthy, I'll probably come back to this another day when I have a bit more time and really get in there and do a really good job and clean that up. I think it's really important to take care of your equipment, particularly this type of equipment where when you need it, you want it to run properly, because it's very frustrating when it doesn't. So it's certainly worth the time to make sure you take your bar off, make sure things are oiled, and make sure things are clean, so the exhaust and the shavings and everything kind of is able to leave the machine in the right manner. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and put this muffler back on. I'm just going to slide it right in and over top of those studs. Okay, that wasn't that difficult to slide that in and over those studs. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our clean screen. You'll notice how much cleaner it is. We can actually see the saw through it now, which is actually pretty impressive. Really happy that turned out that well. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put that screen right back in the little slot from which it came. A little tricky, and just going to rest it in there. Okay, I've managed to get that screen just to kind of stay put. I'm sure if you were having some problems, I've seen little tricks in the past where people put a little bit of oil, a little bit of grease or something like that. I didn't think that was a good idea, just based on the fact that that's kind of the whole reason of why we had to take this apart to clean it. So I was able to kind of do a balancing act and get it in there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little plate, and I too am going to slide that onto the studs, and very carefully make sure that I don't knock anything loose. Okay, that looks like it's good. We'll take our little 5/32, or sorry, our 5/16 little nuts here. I'm just going to hand tighten them on here. Okay, that's one. All right, that's two. Hand tighten those on. Okay, and now I'm just going to put the phone down, and I'm going to tighten this back up with my little socket here, and we'll come back to it. You can see that I've gone ahead and tightened that down. Now, just one little important note. I myself am not a small engine mechanic, nor do I work for Stihl or have any manufacturing recommendations for you. This is just a DIY job at home for a guy that just needs to find the best use of his time in order to get his projects done. I thought I would tackle this on my own. One thing that I did notice when I was putting this muffler back on and slid it over the studs, I was tightening these down, and I realized, how important it is to do a little tightening on one and then switch to the other and kind of try to buckle it down as even as possible. One thing I am not aware of, nor did I find in any research, if these studs need to be torqued to any specific value. That would be something that somebody else a lot smarter than me could answer. What I did is I just very carefully went about tightening them to a point where I thought that they were tight enough. I didn't want to break or strip the bolts on the studs, or break the studs for that matter. I think they're tight enough. I'll certainly run this off for a little bit and let things cool down, and then check to make sure that they're still tight. And I'll just, now that I've kind of fooled around with it, just keep an eye on those. If I do feel that they do get loose, maybe I'll have to torque them, look for something that way, or perhaps even maybe see if Loctite would actually work on these specific studs. Not quite sure about that, just because of how hot things get here, if that would affect that. So nonetheless, we did what we came to do. We were able to access that spark arrestor screen, take it out of there. We heated it up, and we cleaned it up with kind of a weird type of wire brush here. Certainly was not the right one. I would take the time to go and find something in the future. Definitely be adding that to the Christmas wish list. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope that it was informational for you, particular for the brand of the Stihl MS-170. And maybe if I have some more time for all those people that may need to reference YouTube. I know it's been extremely helpful for me. I personally have never done it. This is the first time. So I thought I'd give it a try. If it can help somebody as much as you guys have all helped me in the past, then surely I think it's worth it. So anyways, take care. Have a good day.